Hello everybody, Shane Beck here, and welcome to my first ever narrated 3D modeling tutorial. Today I'm going to be doing the Goddess Harp from the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Now this is my first narrated video tutorial. I'm going to try to call out all the hotkeys and whatnot as I use them, and I've tried to reset Maya to its default look. If I forget to say something, just ask in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. So this is what we're going to be making. This is what I made in my speed modeling series, but we're going to be doing it a different way than I did in that series. So starting off, going to go to the front view, hit space to bring up the 4-panel view, and then jump to the front view by hitting space again with the mouse over it. Go to view, select camera, or view image plane, import image, and wherever you have the reference image, when I bring it up I'll leave it up so that you can take a screenshot of it if you wish. Images folder, harp reference. Alright, and I'm going to make sure that that is centered. So it's not centered, we need this little vertex of the triangle there to be right in the center, and in order to do that we come to the center thing right here and push it to the left by, it looks like negative 0.25, maybe a bit more. Yep, that looks about right. So it's nice and centered, doesn't matter what it is vertically. Alright, and if you go back to perspective, you see that right now it's in the center, and we want it to be more at the back here so that it doesn't get in the way of what we're modeling. So at the Z value we put that to negative 12, and hop back to the front view, and we can slide the alpha down to about 0.5 maybe, so that it's not too blatant. And so go to your tool settings up here and switch it to the surfaces menu, and go to curves in your hotbar and select the EP curve tool. This will let you create curves using endpoints. And double click on the icon in the toolbar over here and make sure that it's set to cubic. Hold X and click where you want it to go, and that should snap it to the grid near the center. Don't worry that it's not exactly where this is. And click around, kind of following the path of the harp, the outline, until you get to about this point right here. Notice how this is where there's like a sharp curve and there's a Y right here. And repeat this process for each of, and you can press the Y key to instantly reselect the EP curve tool after hitting enter to confirm your last curve, and then follow the middle line. Just like we did. Again, if you mess up, hit backspace, and then you can continue on. Right there, enter, and again, going around. There, hit enter again. Then we want to make the curves for this area right here. So select the EP curve again and just do the same thing. Don't worry if it's not exact, we'll fix it later. Enter. Y again. And if you hold C, left click and drag along one of the previous curves, it'll snap it to the end, so you won't have to manually reposition it. And click around, and snap to the end. And again, snap to the end, click around, and snap to the end, and hit enter. So if we go to the perspective view, you see we kind of have an outline matching it, but it's all flat. What we want to be able to do is have curves like this, how this part spirals inwards around here, and this part bulges out. So in order to do that, first we're going to simplify the curves that we just created so that they're easier to edit. Just to illustrate what I'm talking about, if you go into edit mode to grab the control vertices, you'd see there's an awful lot of them, and adjusting those would get kind of annoying. So instead, select all your curves, not the image plane, go to edit curves and rebuild curve, and then reset the settings just to make sure everything's correct. And under number of spans, just put 2 and hit rebuild. You'll notice that if I remove the grid, you'll notice that they kind of have straight edges now. You don't need to worry about that. However, now there's less dots, so it's easier to adjust the curvature. So if we hop back to the front view, then we can pull this down and make sure that it lines up with what we previously had. Pull it down, pull this one up a bit, pull that down, and pull that down. And that looks good. Now this, notice how this isn't exactly in the center. If you highlight it, click on the right arrow, click and release, then hold X and middle mouse gesture along the center of the grid. It'll automatically snap it. And then you can slide it up to where you want it to be. And do the same with the rest of them. Just lining it up. Now if you've snapped them end to end, if you want to move both of them, or you should move both of them rather than just one end piece at once. To do that, you can select one curve, shift select the other, and then marquee select both of them, and then you'll move both at the same time. But for now, just keep lining up the edges. Alright, that's starting to look better. Need to push that in a little bit. Alright. And do the same thing for up here. Now in this case, since we have a tighter curve down here, it might be better to try to move more of the detail over there. So to do that, just drag this stuff more clockwise around the curve. Now in this case, we might not actually have enough detail to see if we're doing things right around here. So select each of these curves, all 3 of them, go to Rebuild Curve under the Edit Curves menu, Rebuild Curve, and set it to 3 spans, Rebuild. Alright. Now it'll be easier to see if we're doing it right. Oop, not fur, herp derp. Move that over there, move that up, down, move that, there we go. Alright, move that a little bit, and up, and that one up as well. There we go, almost there. Alright, moving that one, and this should be the last one. Alright. Now that everything's lined up with the image plane, we can get to what I was talking about earlier with getting these shaped edges out. So, if we come back over to curves, let's say we start with this one. So if I bring over the other harp, previous one, you can see that it needs to start in the center, and as it goes up it widens out until it gets right here and it's at its widest point. So moving that back out of the way, zooming in there, come on, There we go. Go into component selection mode, and if you don't know how to do that, that's clicking these buttons up here. I use the keyboard, but you can click select by component type and then make sure you have point components, which in this case are control vertices. And just bring that out, the next one out, and each one just a bit less than the previous one. Don't worry about getting it exact at this point. It's fine. Just make sure that they spiral. Alright, that looks good. Do the same for the other things. But in this case, since we want to pull this middle one out farther, it might be best to go back to object selection mode. Select these two curves, go to point selection mode, band select everything, then deselect this endpoint by shift clicking and dragging. Then you can slide them all out at once. That looks good. And then adjust these points right here to give them a spiral. Push that in farther. Alright. And there we go. Alright, and if we look at the previous harp, it doesn't actually come to a point. There's actually a flat edge right here. So in order to create that, we just need to grab this curve and slide it out a little bit. Now comes the fun part. After you select everything, all the curves, and rebuild, but this time, so your rebuild curve, make it about 5, and then hit rebuild. And that'll just make them a bit smoother visually. Now, select this curve, then this one, go to Surfaces, Loft, and open up the Options menu. If I reset everything, set Output Geometry to Polygons, Type to Quads, and Tessellation Method to General. Now you might think that that didn't work, but if you open up the channel box, go to the NURBS Tessellate input, and change U and V numbers around. Let's say we put this to 20. We now have a nice curve that goes around. And since we don't need a midpoint there, we set V number to 1. And then you can repeat the same things with the others. However, first, select all of the curves, just band select and then deselect the surface. Go to Layer, Create Layer from Selected, and rename by double clicking on it to let's see, Curve Network Layer. The name isn't important, just make sure you know what it is. Alright, now select these two curves and repeat the loft by going to Surfaces, Loft, and set it to the same that you did for the other one. I believe it was 20 for U number and then 1 for V number. And yes, that is the case. Alright, do the same for these. And to repeat the same thing, just hit G. Select, hit G, and then you can shift select both surfaces, and you can set them both at once to the same settings for the other ones. So, we have a nice start. Now for the part that I was talking about earlier, this flat edge in between them. And if you haven't saved your project so far, do it. So, go to your curve network layer right here and set it to reference. Then band select all of the surfaces, go to Layer, Create Layer from Selected, double click on that layer and name it Surface Layer, although technically it's polygons, not a NURBS surface. Alright, now dereference the curve network layer and reference the surface layer. Select this curve, hit Control D to duplicate it, then hit R to scale. Go up here and make sure this is set to absolute transform, and then the Z value, put 0 and hit enter. It appears that I didn't slide that out earlier, so this has created a duplicate. Now if you shift select around those, shift band select, it will select the previous curve. Get the move tool with W, and if you pull out, it'll automatically move the surface out with it. So now we have this curve in the center and this curve on the outside that the surface is connected to. Just like you did previously, select both of them and go to Surfaces and hit Loft. Then set it to the same thing that you did for the others. 20, and 1. Now if you notice, if I select these, if I dereference the surface layer and select them, the ends tend to line up pretty well, even though they're separate surfaces. Separate polygonal objects, I should say. And that's because you're entering the same values for each of the things. Now, if you select the curve up here, reference the surface layer again. Aha, and apparently we haven't added this surface to the surface layer yet. So select it, then right click surface layer and click add selected objects, and now you can't select it. That's what referencing does. Select the curve on the top, hit Control D to duplicate, hit R to scale, put Z in the box up top, and that will automatically align it with the center. Then select the curve again and hit Loft. Then change the numbers to match 20 and 1. Alright, so nearly there. Before continuing, make sure you add the surface that we just created to the surface layer. Add selected objects. And alright, so now we're going to get to this horizontal bar, which is actually kind of annoying to get to. So, if we go back to the front view and select the EP curve tool again, hold down C, left click and drag to snap the start point to the end of the previous curve that we created, and click along, and then hold Shift and X and left click, and that will make sure that it's aligned with the center and it's at the same vertical height, at the same Y position as the previous point. And then hit enter. Don't worry about this little thing right here. We're going to take care of that right now. If you go into point selection mode, select some of the wayward points and drag them inward. Move this point out and that point in. Problem solved. Move this up and get it to match the previous curve. Alright. Okay. There we go. Move that over a little bit. Alright. Now, go into object selection mode. Hit Control D to duplicate that. Go to Modify Center Pivot. Hit Scale. Scale in Y by -1. Then move it up. So that it matches the previous, or the top part of the bar. Grab the endpoints, move them around, and get them to match. Seems about right. Oop. Alright, now grab the EP curve tool again. Make it linear this time. Again, double click this icon right here if you don't see this. Hold C, left click and drag, and move it to the end. Hold C, left click and drag to snap it up there. Then hit enter. Hit Y to select the EP curve tool again. Hold C, drag, hold C, drag, and then hit enter. Alright, now go back to perspective so you can see what we've done. So we've now created curves for this part. Almost. Go back to object selection mode and select this curve. Hit Ctrl D to duplicate it. Hit R to scale. Scale and Z to 0 just to make sure it's completely flat. Hit W and then move to 0 in Z. And do the same for the one on the bottom. Ctrl D to duplicate, scale and Z by 0. And that time it matched up perfectly. I think. Move this curve. This curve doesn't actually seem to be centered at 0. W, select the Z arrow, hold C, and middle mouse drag on the curve at the bottom, and that'll line it up perfectly. Alright. So, now that we have these, you can select the two of them, hit surfaces, loft, and I guess we could do it same settings for this one as the previous one. 20 and 1, that and that, that, 20 and 1. And now we come to this part. So, if you select these two curves, don't forget to add these surfaces to the surface layer. Add selected objects. Now you can select the curves freely. Select this curve and this curve. Now, lofting at this point might present a bit of a problem. In order to get these two parts to join properly, we're going to need to cut this curve. So actually we're going to unreference the surface layer and delete that surface. And delete this curve back here as well. Now select the EP curve tool, curve snap, click and drag so that it matches that point. Go to the front view, hold shift and click down here, then hit enter. Come back up here, select this curve, then shift select the curve that we just created. Go to edit curves up here and select cut curve. Reset the settings. Select using last curve and hit cut. And that separates these into two different things. Now select each of them, hit Ctrl D, and then scale and Z by 0. Alright. Now, that being done, you can select both of those and loft, both of those and loft. Oops. That one and loft. Alright. Select this, this, and this, and loft. Select this, and loft. And select each of those surfaces that we just created. And set that to, say, 10, and that to 1. These don't need to be such high resolution, so we can take those down a bit. Take that maybe to 3. And at this point, it might actually be better to rebuild these two curves so that they have matching CVs. So, put all the surfaces that we just created in the surface layer, add selected objects, reference it, select these two curves, go to edit curves, and rebuild curve, and let's just bump it up to 10, and hit rebuild, and dereference the surface layer, and yeah, now it's got better topology. This does not, however. So select that curve, hit G to rebuild it. Now that's better. Yep, same problem down there. Select that curve and rebuild it. There we go. Alright, so that being done, we can actually bump up the resolution on that a bit to 20. And it matches up pretty well. There's some differences. Alright, just a few more areas to fill in. Select the EP curve tool again. Reference the surface layer. Hold C and drag to the end. C and drag to the end. Enter. Select both of them and loft the surface. And we can just set that to 1 and 1. And then do the same for this area here. C, click and drag. C, click and drag. Enter. Select, loft. And change it to 1 and 1. Alright, so now it's solid, and if we select all of the curves and add them to our curve network layer, make them invisible, whoops, these two surfaces need to be in our surface layer. Add selected objects, remove curves, so we now have a solid surface. Now the beauty of using curves for this is we can adjust the resolution. So if we want to do a high resolution thing, we can change, I dereference the surface layer, I don't know why I have such trouble saying that, can select these and change this to like 50 and it'll do it no problem. If you're making a game and you want to drop it down, you can drop that to say 10. And it'll do it just fine. So since I'm a game programmer, I'm going to do it as if for a game and stick with that. So these are all separate pieces right now, all separate polygonal objects. So what we need to do now is save and then select everything and go to mesh, combine, yeah. Now, even though these are combined, if we bring back the curve network layer and reference the surface layer, we can still select one of the curves and drag it up and deselect the surface, drag it up, and it will still do it fine. So we can get the slight curve that's on the top of this one. Do the same thing for the bottom. And we need to add the surface that we just created to the surface layer now. Add selected objects. Now at this point I'm going to delete the construction history because I think I'm done with the curves. Dereference the surface layer. Edit, delete by type history. Alright, now select it, go to, let's see here, change this to polygons, edit mesh, and drop down to merge, and set the threshold to something like 0.1. Alright, and that will merge everything. Now this is a lot of unnecessary detail right here. If we switch to face selection mode and we chop out, say, that amount of stuff, go to vertex selection mode, select a vertex, and then go to the merge vertex tool by holding down shift, right click, moving it up to merge vertices, then moving it down to merge vertex tool. Alternately, you can go to edit mesh and go to merge vertex tool, click and drag to slide it over, go to edge selection mode, select each of these edges, hit scale, and scale in X by 0, and now that's perfectly matched up in the center. So there's still some oddities like this, and you can go around and merge those with the Merge Vertex tool. That one, actually, and if you want to add another division to an edge, you can choose the Interactive Split tool by going to Edit Mesh, Interactive Split tool. Click right there and then hit Enter, and then grab your Merge Vertex tool again, and then merge those vertices. And then when you're happy with the result, oh, also, if the shading is a bit off, like in this area right here, there's some hard edges, you can select them, hold down right click, go to Soften Hardened Edge, then Soften Edge. Alternately, I believe that's under Normals and then Soften Edge. That will smooth the edge. Make sure you do it for everything that needs it. Soften Edge. Here we come to a problem. So the reason this was created is because of some normals issues from everything else. So go back to object selection mode, go to normals, and hit conform. And it will highlight the faces that it reversed them on, and that's to make it so that they're all facing the right way. Now if we look at it, smooth there, and this edge needs to be smooth to match. And then you can go to Edit, Duplicate Special, reset the settings, change this to Instance, scale in X by -1, apply, shift select the previous thing, set the X scale to 1 and the Z scale to -1, hit Duplicate Special, and now you have a harp without strings. Now if you come across something like this, let's see if I can get a good view of it. Zoom in with F. It's caused by this vertex not being in the center. If you select the Z-axis, hold V, and no mouse gesture on the vertex that is in the center, then it will line it up. Looks like I'll have to do the same with that one. And there we go. No issues there. Alright, oh, we do have an issue here. So the issue is basically there's another edge here, they don't actually connect. So the way we're going to fix that is go back to the Interactive Split tool, which is under Edit Mesh, and split it like that. And go to Vertex Selection Mode and the Merge Vertex tool and merge them. And I think this edge should be hard. Yeah, these two edges need to be hard. Alright. And this edge, these edges need to be soft. Alright. And perhaps move this up a little bit. I don't want to get too picky. Alright. Looks good. Now, the strings can be done in a number of ways depending on the application, whether it's an animation or a game. If you're making it for a game, you might not even want to model in the strings. If you're making it for an animation, you might want to use like bones for animating them. So I'll just show you how to create the strings out of like cylinders. So if you go to Create, Polygons, Cylinder, and set it to something sane like 6 subdivisions around the axes. Subdivisions caps to 0. go to face selection mode, select the ends, and delete. Actually, don't delete the ends just yet. Hit subdivision's height and put that to something like 6 so that it'll bend fine. Put that up to like 10, and radius down to say 0.5, much smaller 0.2, 0.1. That'll be fine. Now move it out so that we can see the ends. Go to face selection mode, select the ends, delete. Go to edge selection mode, select all the edges and soften them. And move it back to 0 in Z. You can move it to the side, hit Shift D, drag it out a little bit, then spam Shift D, and there you go. You have a completed Goddess Harp. And if you want to see a texturing tutorial, be sure to like this video and subscribe, and I will get it out. Thank you very much for watching.